think there's a lot of misconceptions about what prices have done since the beginning of 2020, and I want to clear that up in today's video. Welcome back to the channel. My name is Tom Storey. I run a real estate team here in Toronto, and among selling lots of houses, we do a lot of business in the condo sector, specifically the downtown market. So if you watch this video and you learn anything new, all I ask is that you hit that like button and subscribe to our growing community. You can also go into the first link in the description, book an appointment directly with me at a time that works for you. This video is part 2. Now, the last video that came out on my channel was called The Truth About the Toronto Condo Market. If you have not already, make sure to watch that video. I would actually say maybe watch that one first before you come back here. And in that video, I told you what was going on today. What was going on with prices, with inventory level, with how long it was taking to sell, with the advice that I was giving to buyers and sellers. And some of the feedback that I got on that video was like, okay, this is all great, but like, show us what's going on with a graph. Don't just tell us, like, show us what's happening. And I agreed with that feedback. So what I did is I actually went into my system and spent a lot of time doing this. So give me a like just because all the time it spent me to do this. And I graphed it. And I'm going to show you in this video exactly what happened in the Toronto condo market. So this is condo apartments, 416 area code, okay? But all of Toronto since the beginning of 2020. And I'm going to show you why this is maybe important to you. And then we're going to talk about, well, should you sell your condo? Should you invest in the condo market right now? Or what is the future going to look like? I'm going to do my best to address all of that. If you're up to date on what's happening with the Toronto real estate market, you already know that the peak of the market was February 2022. And then we came down, down, down. The rate hikes go up and the prices come down. And that's pretty clear. We all know that. But even if you bought a house in 2020 or 2021, even with the dip that we saw at the end of last year, for the most part, your property is still worth way more than you paid for it. Most of the freehold buyers that are negative on paper right now is because they bought in those peak 2 or 3 months. But the condo market's been a lot different because I'm meeting with sellers every single day. And if they bought in 2015, 2016, they got tons of equity in that property and they're usually pretty happy with the sale price. But if they bought in late 2019 or early 2020, depending on the month, it could be worth the same today, if not slightly lower than when they purchased it. So let's look at the graph. Okay, so what we're looking at here is average sale price for 416 condos in Toronto. And this graph is going back to January 2020. It's taking us all the way to August 2023. I sat here and manually put this together for you. So I hope you appreciate it. And you can see that 750 mark, right, across the board here. So in early 2020, the average sale price was about $640,000, right there, just to start, right? And so let's go back to 2020 and kind of play this out. So January 2020 was an okay market, jumped up in February, a little bit down in March. April, we all know what happened that month. That's when everything was shut down. So that bar could pretty much be taken out. And then it kind of dropped off a little bit. And then the end of the year really came down, right? So if you look at December 2020 to February, we saw condo prices drop off on this chart here, anywhere from like 8 to 10% across the board. But what happened in January 2021? So we started jumping up again here. They still haven't hit 750, right? So April 2021, we finally got back to where we were in February of 2020. And it kind of dropped off a little bit. Then we jumped finally over it. September of 2021, it was higher than it was in 2020. But you can see here, it really depends on the month that you bought. Now, as we come over here into the beginning of 2022, okay, this was January 2022, just over 750. Then we went to $822,000 in February. And actually, March was technically the peak for condo prices, was $833,000. And then you can see it's been steadily dropping off from there. It weirdly jumped up again in September of 2022. I honestly can't tell you why that happened, but then it's kind of dropped off again here a little bit. Now, if we go to this year, May of 2023 was the peak of this year. And now we've seen 3 months of dropping off. What I'm trying to get across with all of this is if you look at right here, August 2023, where we are in today's market, and you just go across here, we're kind of back to where we started. And in fact, there's several months, right? February of 2020, March of 2020, anything over the 750 line here or close to it, that if you bought in those months, the property right now would be worth less today than what you paid for it. And I guess the question is now is like, well, how does this play out next? And Personally, I'm not betting against the downtown Toronto market long term. I think that would be foolish in my opinion. Short term, the next 2 years, I got no clue what's happening. There's lots of talk with all the pre-construction units coming to the market. There's all these people that can't close on them. I don't know how that all plays out. I'm not involved in that world. In fact, I've been trying to tell people not to buy pre-construction condos for the last 3 to 4 years, but no one listened to me because I thought the prices didn't make sense. So what's the point of this entire video? Is just to show you the condo market hasn't really changed. In fact, it's gone down, then back up, then down again, then back up, then down, but it kind of got back to where it started. It all depends along that line. When did you purchase? And from the beginning of 2020 until now, prices have not changed. But I think if you hold the property for another 5 years, another 10 years, you're probably going to be in a pretty good position. Now, people that bought condos in 2015 and sold them in 2020, they might have actually doubled their money, right? But anyone that bought in 2020 and wants to sell in 2025, I can't even guarantee you that you're going to get your money back. You probably are in most of these micro markets, but across the board, the average numbers, at least as of right now, nothing changes in the next year and a half. I don't know how it's going to play out. I personally think there's opportunities in today's market. I'm looking at some stuff for myself because I'm thinking long term. I'm also looking at the gap in price between condos and semis and detached properties, and it's continued to grow even with the slowdown in the market. And when that happens, one of two things happens. Either freehold drops down or condos jump up, and then they kind of play out depending on what happens. And the one thing we haven't even talked about is the rental market, which is the most expensive it has ever been. So even though condo prices are about the same as they were at the beginning of 2020, the cost of owning that property is also a lot higher because the rates are a lot higher. I hope you learned something new today. I hope you found that graph valuable. If you have any questions or want to let me know in the comments what you think is going to happen, I'd love to know and start the conversation. Thanks so much for watching this video. My name is Tom Storey, and remember, home is where your story begins.